right. Okay, this is where they come up default. So the scene manager is very important because the scene manager basically shows where all of your content is. Okay, you can see here there's a number of different props, there's an actor, and we have a scene with a number of different items that are part of the scene. If you click on the item, like this monitor, for example, it'll highlight in the scene manager. You click on our character, you can see he will highlight as well. You click on the lamp will highlight. It's down here as part of our scene. And I'll show you how to create your own custom scene in just a moment. Okay, so you can click on all these items here as well. And you can see that you can select the entire scene by clicking scene. You can select individual items as well. Now, the content manager is where you'll find all your content, okay? So if you go to your actor tab, you're gonna find all of your actors. Animation tab, you're gonna find animations, so on and so forth. I guess I don't really need to explain that. Basically, the content manager is where you find all your content. Very straightforward, okay? Now, if you want to move your camera around the scene, that's the next most important thing. Make sure up here at the very top, you have camera record mode turned off, okay? So when it's off, it'll just be, it won't be red, okay? It'll be grayed out. And the way to move your camera around your scene is pretty simple. The way I do it is I just hold the Alt key and I left click and drag, okay? So if I hold Alt and left click and drag, I can pan around the scene like this, okay? And if I hold Alt and both mouse keys, then I can zoom in and out like this, okay? Since we're in a 2D environment, that's the basics. Alt and both mouse keys and Alt and left to pan around like this. Now, one thing to note is that there's if you pay close attention here, let's go to a white area of the screen. There's a blue box, a blue outline right here, excuse me. And that blue outline indicates all the stuff that's going to be shown in our scene. If I go into camera record mode, that's going to turn red. Okay, so it just swaps over here. You can see it turns red, and that's going to be everything that's outside of that scene, outside of that red box rather, is not going to be recorded in our final video. It's not going to be shown or rendered in our final video. Okay, so that's basically it. The controls of Cartoon Animator 4 are very simple. That's really all you need to know. And we'll talk about moving items a little bit later on. But first of all, let's take a look at kind of just adding stuff to our scene. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and start a new project. We don't need to save this one. We'll come back to that a little bit later. And I'm going to just throw a couple of things into our scene here. Now you can actually go to you can actually save your own scene. If you go to the scene tab over here, make sure you're in the template tab, not custom. Okay, up here. And in scene, you can see there's a number of different templates here. We have this animated beach scene. We have some classroom scenes. Most of these are included with Cartoon Animator 4 by default. Okay, so you can find these and you can just throw them in there. Like for example, if I wanted this classroom scene, I can just double click that classroom scene and it'll pop up like this. And then if we go to our scene manager, you can see we have a couple different items in this scene, clock, the bulletin board, and so on and so forth, okay? And if we go to the content manager and we go to like a different scene, like this animated beach scene, if we double click this scene is going to replace the last scene, okay? So that's one thing to make note of. When you add a scene, it's going to replace the last scene, okay? And you can see this one's a bit more complicated. So we have stuff like this ball or this deck chair or this umbrella, a parasol, I guess you call it, a beach towel, okay? So just be aware of that you're going to be replacing those things in your scene. Now, if you want to start from a very, very simple scene, there's a general background folder here. By the way, you can also click and drag this little median here so you can see more of the text. I just generally like to keep it in the middle there. These are just some basic scenes that have a stage. I kind of call them like stand-up comedy stages, scenes rather. Okay, and all they include is just a simple background prop. You can see here it's just background 07 in our scene manager. Okay, you can throw in a different one like a blue one. Okay, so on and so forth. If you want, let's throw in some other stuff here because I'm going to basically show you how to save your own scene, so you can kind of just load this scene in whenever you want in a new project. So let's go to props, for example here. And props are where you're going to find all the props in your scene. Okay, so like anything from a TV to a tree, you know, to whatever. I don't know. Okay. In this case, I'm just going to throw in a microphone here since we're going to be doing some kind of like comedy stage. Okay, so we'll just throw our microphone in here, and let's just throw this. Um, I don't know what you'd call this, a curtain, stage curtain. Okay, and I'm going to zoom out. And if you want to resize anything in your scene, you can simply go ahead and go to the top right, top left, or whatever corner and resize it just like this. Okay, you can click and drag and resize it. Just make sure the icon changes, or the cursor rather, changes to this cursor right here, and you can resize it. You can resize it vertically and horizontally as well. Okay, I'm just going to go here and resize it down to here. There we go. All right. And we're going to zoom in a little bit so we can remember the only thing that's showing is whatever's in this blue box here. Okay. So at this point here, we can go ahead and throw in a character as well. Let's go ahead and throw in our go into actor here, and under character, we have G3 360 characters, and under that we have G3 360 human characters. Okay. And I'm going to throw in Philip here, Philip F. Okay, now the F indicates he's a front-facing character. The S indicates a side-facing character. And some characters also have S2, which means they are 90-degree facing characters. Okay, so they're facing 90 degrees from the scene. Now you can see that Philip shows up a little bit large, just like this. We can go ahead and make that make him a little bit smaller, or vice versa. We can also make the microphone larger if we want. In this case, I'm just going to make it a little bit smaller, just like this. Okay, we're going to zoom in slightly. Actually, let's make them both a bit larger. His microphone needs to be a bit taller there. There we go. All right, so say Philip here is doing some stand-up comedy. Now, the easiest way to save your scene. So now we just have 3 items in our scene. We have this curtain, we have this background stage, and we have this microphone. And if we go to our scene manager, you can see there's a stage curtain. We have a scene, and we have a microphone and a stage curtain as props. So if you want to convert your props to part of your scene, it's very easy. You can simply click on your prop, right-click it, and select Convert to Scene. Okay, so the microphone, when I convert it to scene, it becomes part of our scene here now. All right, and the stage curtain as well. If we want, we can right-click on the stage curtain and go Convert to Scene. You can also reverse that and right-click it and go Convert to Prop and Convert to Scene. Okay, now when it's a part of your scene, say for example, I spent more than 30 seconds creating this scene, and I wanted to save it. I did a lot of hard work, and I want to save it as a scene so I can use it in the future. Well, I can go to my content manager here, and I'm going to go to my scene tab and the custom tab up here, and into scene, and I'm just going to go ahead and press this plus key at the bottom right. Okay, so press plus just like this, and it's going to everything that we have in our scene, which is everything except for the character. It'll save now. We can call this, stand-up scene. Okay. And then if we want, we can go ahead and start a new project. Say we don't want to save it, we accidentally crashed our computer or something. Then we can just go ahead and double-click stand-up scene, and everything will be added into our scene again. Okay. Everything that we added before is all together and arranged in the proper way. And if I want to add my actor in, I just go to actor, and I'll throw in like Philip again. And again, he'll be a little bit large, so I'll just have to resize him slightly. Just like this. He's giant compared to that microphone. Okay, there we go. Now, okay, so we have this scene. What if I wanted to really quickly animate this scene? It's pretty simple, to be honest. All you have to do is just right-click on your character. Some characters have an action menu. Okay, our default characters all have an action menu, and they have stuff like idle, doubt, just basically your typical standard animations. Let's try this idle stand, for example. Okay, he'll do like a fashionable hands on the hip pose. Okay, and that'll go for about 159 frames. You can see right here at the bottom. Now, if I want to go back to the beginning, I'll go back and press stop here, or I can also go to start, and then I can play back again. There he's doing his fashion pose. What about those models, those fashion models? He's going to start his comedy monologue there. Okay, and if you want to see that clip that we just played in the timeline, go down here to your timeline. But I really recommend learning the F3 hotkey. Okay, the F3 hotkey allows you to bring up your timeline like this. Okay, and in the timeline, you can see we have Philip F selected. Now, one thing I highly recommend doing is when you have your timeline open, make sure you have this option selected, which is object related track. Okay, so if I click object related track and I enable it, what's going to happen is every time I select something in my scene, like for example, the curtains, the item in the timeline is going to change to that item. Okay, so stage curtains. If I select the microphone, it's going to change to microphone. If I select the background, it's going to change to our background. Okay, very useful because generally when you click on something, that's the thing you want to animate or that's the thing you want to modify. Okay, and with your timeline open. So generally, I always, as a rule, I always have this selected. Some people don't like it, but I like to have it selected. I guess if you're modifying multiple things at the same time, maybe you wouldn't want it selected. Okay, so let's select our character, and we're going to go to motion. So motion is where all the motion clips are from your that your character has animated with. And if we scrub through our timeline here by clicking this little thing on the bottom here, you can see that we have this motion called idle stand. Okay, and if we click in the top and drag where the numbers are up here, we can slowly scrub through the timeline and see that motion changing from one position to the next. Okay, pretty cool stuff. And that's the basics of applying props to your scene, saving a scene, and throwing an animation on your character using the action menu. Now, if you want to animate your character, there's also a ton of animations available in the animation tab of your content manager. Okay, now if we go to perform, the perform motions are generally going to be face and body animation together. You'll notice that with our idle animation, Philip's face doesn't change at all. He has this creepy neutral expression. He's just looking at us and doing a fashionable hands on hip pose. Okay. Um, Now, if we go back to frame one, we can use a perform motion here. So under perform, we have a G3 performs. These are the basic ones that are included with Cartoon Animator 4. And we also have these G3 human motions, social emoticons. So these are all motions that you can purchase from the content store, and I'll throw that link up in the chat window as well. This is going to be, I believe, this one. I probably should have saved this, and I'll throw this in the chat window as well. So this pack is also really cool. This is a pack for Cartoon Animator 4, and it has a bunch of different characters. We call them social buddies. Okay, they're, as you can see, a slightly different style, and they have all sorts of emotions. So 46 motions for social, 63 emotions, and 27 bonus. You can explore those on your own time. There's a whole, you can go through them on the page here. But I'm going to go ahead and just apply one of these to our character. Let's go ahead and close our timeline and go back to frame one. We're at frame one right now, so it's basically going to overwrite the animation that we already have. So let's go to like, I don't know, some emotion one. You can see here, maybe this, if you see the 1S in parentheses, that means start. The L stands for loop, and the E rather, stands for end. Okay, if you ever see animations like this. Let's try this scolding, tisk tisk. Okay. Okay, so that's the start right there, and right after that we can apply the L, so that's the loop, be wagging his finger, and then we'll apply the end, okay, which will take him back to this normal pose. And then if we press F3 and go into our timeline, you can see here we have 1, 2, and 3 clips, okay, all combined together. And we'll talk about more about animating those clips and refining them and modifying them in the last part of this series here in part 3. Okay, so if we play back, press the space key to play back. You can see he does his little thing like that. Okay, now those don't have voices on them, but some of them do have voices. Like for example, let's go to these voiced bonus ones right here. Celebration, let's try this one here. Okay, pal celebrate. This should have some voice. Oh, now if you have your animations interrupting each other, you can simply right click on your character and you can select remove object animation. And that's going to remove all the animation from the character. Some of these should have voices, I believe, like this maybe innocent one. Maybe not the most appropriate one for this guy, but you can see just very simple. Let's try this one here. Maybe this one's a bit more.
Yay! Yay!
Okay. And again, this side one right here is. Okay, so a lot of groans. Some of them are like voiced as well. But yeah, you see what I'm talking about right there. Okay, so essentially that's, I just want to kind of show you how easy it is to create your scene, to save your scene, to apply animations to your character, either from the action menu or from the content manager. So that's the basics I want to kind of show you just to go through the UI. And that's a very, very basic UI introduction. The next part of this, webinar, we're going to talk about animating our props, okay? And we're going to bring a character into our scene. We got to do a couple things, and they're mostly going to be related to props. And then we'll talk about, at the very end, we'll talk about importing in music and special effects. Okay, so to start to bring in props into our scene, let's go ahead and just load in our other project here, the other main project that we had, which was part 1 here. Okay. And again, any questions about this project, feel free to throw that into the Q&A section, and I'll answer those as soon as I can. I also wanted to mention as well, we have some other stuff in this, I'm going to be using in this webinar, which is this link right here, this Office Life. This is a content pack from one of our developers, Fantasy Stanley. By the way, if you want, you can actually publish your own custom characters, your own custom props, or custom animations in our marketplace or our content store. I'll show you the marketplace here. Marketplace.reallusion.com. Okay, this is where you can buy lots of customized content. If you go to Cartoon Animator at the top here, you can see there's tons of different content you can search for, you can find. I'll throw this link in the chat window as well for you guys. Oops, there we go. It just never appears unless I let's see if I can use the hotkey. Nope, it's only appearing below everything else. So I have to go back to my desktop. Sorry about that, guys. Or is it? I think my chat window just died. Okay, well, marketplace.reallusion.com is not really a difficult URL to find. You just like it sounds. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and mention this pack here, this Fantasy Stanley. Okay, you can review this later on when we send out the recording to you guys, and we'll just go ahead and close down Chrome for now. Okay, so back to our scene. Now, there's a couple things I'm going to add to our scene, which I've already added here, but I'm going to just delete this monitor in front of our character, and I'm going to delete the character, since we're going to add him in a little bit later on. Okay, so again, always a good idea to go out of camera record mode, because when you're in camera record mode, any movement you make of the camera is going to be recorded. And we'll talk about that in the third part of this webinar series as well, when we talk more about animation. Okay, so go out of camera record mode, and you can see we have a couple guys on the side. They're not in the scene though. And what we're going to focus on is bringing in a prop and animating that prop. Okay, so first of all, let's do that. Let's go to our prop section here. And under Office, we have, this should be a default folder for all Cartoon Animator 4 users. You should have all of this stuff by default. Okay, so you can see phones, trash cans, paintings, pretty crappy painting if you ask me, but you know, I'm not an artist. So I'm going to throw in this monitor back, which was the monitor that you just saw earlier in this scene here. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. Let's go into monitor back and bring that in. Okay, now you can see the monitor kind of, what we need to do is reposition the monitor because it's kind of, we want the monitor to be on our desk. Okay, let's use about this distance right here. You can see if we move the monitor, it's actually behind the desk and behind the cup of coffee and everything like that. So what we need to do is we actually need to bring this monitor forward on the z-axis. If you're unfamiliar with the different axes of your world in a 2D program, the x-axis is going to be left and right. The y-axis is going to be up and down, and the z-axis is going to be forward and backward. If you can picture it in a 3D environment. So let's go ahead and check that out. The best way to do it is to go over here to, we'll take a look at that a little bit later though, 3D view. The easiest way to move a prop back and forth is hold your mouse cursor over the top, over the bottom center part of your prop, and it'll turn into this little icon right here, this little cursor right here. And then if you click and drag, you can see you can move it back and forth on the z-axis. Okay, you can move it behind everything, or you can move it in front of everything. Now, one thing to note here, you can find all those values up here in the top left. Okay, we have right now on the x-axis, we are at 0 or 1.2, and we can actually move these. We can actually click right here. We can move it up on the y-axis like this. Okay, we can move it back and forth on the x-axis like this, and the z-axis. Okay, so this is coming closer towards us, and this is going further away from us. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to have this, a little bit in front of the coffee glass or behind the coffee glass, but in front of the table. So looks like let's just get rid of that for now. It's just making things complicated. So I'm going to bring it forward so it's just in front of the table. Now you'll notice here that due to the perspective, it looks like the computer monitor is kind of going off the table. So we could do two things. We could create a new prop with a little bit of a thinner base, or we could actually modify this prop. Okay, so I'm going to select this prop and I'm going to modify it using this cool little tool here called the prop key editor. So I'm going to select the prop key editor, and that's going to bring up this tool right here. And you can see there's two sections here. There's a transform section and a deform section here. The transform section is basically just transforming the size and the scale and the rotation of your prop. Okay, we're not going to worry about that right now. We're going to worry about deform. We're going to deform this prop. And you can see when we select deform, we have a whole bunch of different control points that we can modify. Now I'm going to zoom in really quick. Okay, so we can get a better, closer look at this. So what we want to do here is we want to make the base of our monitor a little bit thinner, so it's kind of conforming more to the size and the position of the table. Okay, the table is very thin. So what we need to do here is we can actually select individual points. We can bring them down, and when we do so, we can actually flatten certain parts of the mesh of our object there. Okay, so I can bring it down like this, and I can bring the other sides down here as well, just like this, and that will flatten all the sides of our computer base there. So you can see like this, that looks a little better. That's more like it's supposed to look. You can see it kind of messes with the top area there as well. So we can just kind of bring the top a little bit further down, try and straighten that out. Okay. If it looks a little bit weird, don't worry, don't fret right now, because we can actually smooth that out by using this little function right here. You can see it's a little bit lopsided. We can use this option right here called Smooth Deformed Object. And if we select that, what it does is it kind of just smooths everything out according to where your control points are. All right, so, and that's a permanent change. Okay, that's not an animation, that's a permanent change. So now our computer monitor looks a bit more appropriate for where it is, and it kind of looks kind of cool because we have this, our control points are kind of creating like a U shape and kind of put some aggressive edges on our computer monitor there. Okay. And you can also change the opacity of your whatever prop you want, and you can use these default skews. I'm not going to do that right now since we've already modified it to a custom modification. Okay, and you can reset all if you don't like it, or just reset the last one, and so on and so forth. Okay, we'll just go ahead and close that down, and there we go. Okay, we have our monitor now. It looks a lot better in our scene. We've modified that, and if we want, we can save that as a separate prop as well, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But let's go ahead and do the next thing here, which is we're going to bring our character in, and we're going to position our character. And this is going to use a slightly different tool. So let's go ahead and find our actor. Now I have a custom actor saved for this. If I go to characters, I have Jim in plain clothes. Our character's name is Jim, Just click and drag him and bring him in. Okay. Now these characters, by the way, are taken from one of our developers, Gary Pye, one of our very prolific developers in the content store. I'm going to just click on his link here, and then I can probably close this down since I don't need any of these links anymore. All right, so this is a character from Gary Pye. Okay, his Bendy series, you can see by Gary Pye right here. And you can find this in the marketplace. You can purchase this in the marketplace. Basically, this character is generated using this character base. All right, you can see over here, author Gary Pye. You can go ahead and click on him. There we go. It should bring up a lot more of his content. You can find tons and tons of stuff here. You should be able to. No, it's all in the marketplace. It's all in the content store. Never mind. Or not on the main page anyways. You can go over here to human, and you can find all sorts of cool, funny characters he's created, like little Kim Jong-un and little knights and stuff like that, beatnik. Lots of cool stuff you can check out from Gary Pye. There's the character in the scene. Okay, so you can see he appears basically right where we want him, behind the monitor, but in front of the chair. Okay, but we actually want this character to be seated. Okay. Now, if I want to, modify the character, but I don't want to, to move the monitor, what I can do is I can select my monitor here. Let's make sure we go to the scene manager here and find it's a monitor back. Okay, as a prop, we can go ahead and show it like this. Select show or deselect it. Okay. Another way to do that is to select this option up here, this icon, visible or invisible. Okay. Now, show is going to be animatable. Okay, this you can show it at one frame and you can make it disappear at another frame. This one here, it's going to be just visible or invisible. Okay, so we'll make it invisible for now, and we're going to select our character, and we're going to use a very similar tool to the prop editor, but this one is for characters, called the 2D motion key editor. Okay, and you can see once we click that, it'll bring up this panel here, and our character will have some yellow bones on him. So a couple things to note here. This character, our 2D motion key editor, uses human IK, which essentially means when you move the character, you can actually lock certain limbs in place, and the rest of the body, if you animate the body, the rest of the body will animate naturally according to that movement. I'll show you what I mean right here. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this left hand right here. Okay. And we're going to click on this little lock. Okay. Notice when we click on the lock, these little two nubs here become red. Now I'm going to click on my character's hips. Okay. And I'm going to move his hips. Click and drag the little hip blue box here around. Notice that when we do that, that our character's hand and feet stay in place. Okay. And the reason for that is because those are all locked. Okay. So we can lock the extremities in place, and we can move the rest of the body. Okay, we can move like the chest, for example. Okay, like this. Come over here. He's doing like a sexy dance in his seat. But keep in mind that those extremities, the hand here and the feet, will remain in place. Okay, let's take the lock off that hand since we don't really care about the hand position. And I'm going to bring my character down to a seated position behind the chair. Okay. And I want to make his left hand here rotate this direction. Okay. We're going to take the shoulder. So you again click on whichever bone you want, and you can. There's a little cursor that will appear outside of the box here, the rotate cursor. And just click and drag that. Okay. And we'll go like down here and take this arm a little bit further down, and take the hand and rotate that as well. Now I'll probably need to rotate his chest forward, okay, since his other arm's not really reaching. Maybe even move it forward a little bit here, okay? So he has a little bit of a better posture in his seat, okay? So ideally we want his hands to be behind the laptop since we don't really need to pay attention to what they're doing, just like this, okay? And I think we want to fold that way. We want our arm to bend the other direction. There we go. Let's just put it this right here. Okay, so we have our character in the initial position. Now, whenever you do this, make sure you're at frame 1, okay? If you don't have it at frame 1 when you do this, it'll cause some problems for you, which we'll explore a bit more in part 3 of this webinar series. Okay, so with our character in position, what I'm going to do is go to the content manager, and I'm going to go to animation, and we have under animation, under motion, we do have, I believe, the Fantasy Stanley under perform, that office life pack I mentioned before. There's all these office motions, okay? So this one right here, I'm just going to do this typing L, which is typing loop, okay? So if I go ahead and just double click that, our character is going to go ahead and do his typing, okay? And he'll move down like that, which is fine. So what we need to do is we need to press stop relative to our first position here. We need to kind of reposition him right here. Okay, maybe we'll position him here, and we'll just move the chair a little bit forward. All right, there we go. That'll work just fine. And we can also move his legs down as well. So if we select our character, take his legs, use a 2D motion key editor. Now you can see that the feet are unlocked. So we can actually take the feet by themselves and move those down and rotate the ankles like that. And same thing for the other foot. All right, we'll just kind of put it like this. And the ankle, we can rotate that as well. And again, we'll talk about animation stuff a little bit later on in part 3 of this webinar. Okay, so make sure you do that always at frame 1, by the way. Okay, so now we have this.
Jim, you really
we have Jim working away, and his obnoxious
Jim, you really should take a break from animating. You've been
his obnoxious coworker comes in and starts blabbing in his face, right? How many of us have been in that scenario? All right. Anyways, no, my coworkers are all awesome. Don't worry about it. Okay, so that's basically it for that part. The last thing we have to do here is we're going to throw in some music and some sound effects. Okay, that'll be the last little bit here. And if you have any questions, I did want to animate the monitor as well before I move on here. So let's go ahead and do that. That monitor that I had in earlier. I forgot about it because I made it disappear for a while. How easy we forget things when we make them disappear. Okay, so monitor back. Let's go ahead and make it visible again. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to remove these characters from the scene since we don't really need to worry about them. They'll be a distraction in this case. So I'm going to take our After Effects character, move him out. We'll see him again in part 2. Okay, we'll take this random chicken. We'll see the chicken again in part 2. All right, and we have, I'm going to press F3 and go into our timeline. And in your project track here, this is where you're going to find your 3 sound, your sound effects 1, sound effects 2, and music tracks, okay? So you can open those up, and you can see if we hold the Alt key, by the way, this is a very, very useful hotkey to learn for zooming in and out of your timeline. If you hold the Alt key and you scroll your mouse wheel, you can zoom in and out of your timeline like this. I use this all the time. So I'd really recommend learning this. Again, holding the Alt key and scrolling your mouse wheel will allow you to zoom in and out of the timeline like this. So for brevity's sake here, I'm just going to go ahead and delete all this stuff in our timeline. My zoom panel's getting in the way here. Oh, there it appears. There's my chat window. Just randomly appeared. Okay. All right, so right now what we have is this. Okay, if I press space and play back, we just have our character. And we can have him loop as long as we want. Let's go to our character and select the motion here. And we're just going to go ahead and click and drag on that clip and loop it. Okay, we can loop it as long as we want. So then our character is going to be okay. So as you may recall, in the video I showed you earlier, the monitors were bouncing up and down. They were kind of like jumping around because the guy was too jacked up on coffee. And so, things in the office started moving by themselves. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at a very simple prop animation and adding that prop animation to an action menu and then saving it. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. Let's zoom in on our little monitor here. Okay, we'll close down our project tracks for now. Monitor back. So what we want to do here is we want to actually go into our transform track. Okay, so transform track, and we're going to open up our prop key editor again. You can use the K hotkey. Now the transform track doesn't really matter too much in this case, but once we, the transform track itself, but we need to pay attention to the other ones below it, okay? So let's go ahead and I'm going to zoom right in here. So at frame 5, what we're going to do is we're going to go to frame 5 here. So again, you can click and drag in the top. I'm going to go to frame 5, and we're going to deform our monitor, okay? So we're going to take this point here and kind of bring it down like this. And this point here, we're going to kind of just compact the monitor like this, like that. And we can, you know, bring this part down here as well if we want. It doesn't really matter. Just like that. Okay, so what's happened now is under the monitor back D track underscore D, the D stands for deform. We'll talk about the other two in other tutorials. The D stands for deform, so that's what we're doing right now. We're using deform. So from 0 to 5, now we have this. We have our monitor going squishing down like this. Okay, that's an animation. Hooray! And then for frame 10, we're going to go over to frame 10, and then we're going to have the monitor stretch out this way. Just like this. Okay, so now we have 3 keyframes. You can see it automatically generates a keyframe every time we do this. And now we have 3 keyframes. It goes like this, down, and stretch to the left. And then we want, at frame 15, we want to go down once again. Now we can try to find that exact position. We can kind of, you know, use the values right here to get that exact same position. Or we can simply click on the keyframe, the second one right here where it's stretched down, or it's squashed down rather. We can right click and select copy, okay? So you can copy your keyframes and you can paste them later on. So we're gonna go ahead and right click and paste. So now we have squash down, stretch to the left, squash down, and then for frame 20, we want to stretch to the right. Okay, so we'll stretch it to the right like this, way up there. And this might be a bit more exaggerated, but that's fine. Okay, so now we have squash, stretch to the left, down, stretch to the right. And then maybe frame 25, we want to go back to our initial position, which is our first keyframe. You can right click, copy, and frame 25, we can just right click and paste that keyframe. Okay, so now we have this. Okay. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to save that animation. Now we can save this animation into our action menu and we can apply it to other props in our scene, which I'm going to show you how to do. Okay, so let's close this prop key editor here. And what I'm going to do is open up the collect clip track, okay, for our prop. We're going to open up the collect clip track here. And let's make our timeline a bit taller, okay, just so you can see everything here. And so you can see here, down, down, down. So what we want to do is we want to left click and drag in our collect clip track for the duration of the animation that we want to capture, okay? So you can see I'm left clicking and dragging like this, and scrub through the timeline like this. Now I'm going to actually save this as a separate animation first. So once you're satisfied with your selection area, what you want to do is right click and you want to select export. Okay, we're going to select export for now. And this is going to export a CT cartoon animator prop motion file, okay, or CT anim file. I'm just going to overwrite the one that I have on the desktop called bounce. Okay, go ahead and save that. Yes, we can replace it. Okay, so we've saved that as a custom animation. But if you have an animation that you want to apply to your character very often, like for example, it's a character and you want to apply a walk animation, which they do all the time, you may want to add it to the action menu. So each prop and each character has what's called an action menu, which you saw earlier. So if I right click on the prop, or rather right click in the clip track, I'm going to select add to action menu, okay? Just like this. And we'll just call this bounced, okay? And press okay. Now if I right click on my prop there and I go to action menu, you can see we have something called bounce. All right, let's go somewhere down here, frame 25. I'm going to right click action menu and select bounce. Okay, and you can see it's the exact same number of frames and our character is bounce. But when you add something to the action menu, it actually adds to your motion track. Okay, So let's go ahead and go to the motion track. You can see there's our motion clip, okay, called bounce. Boing, boing, like this, okay? So this is the keyframes for the prop animation, and this is the motion clip that we created, okay? Now this motion clip is exactly the same as the one we saved to our desktop. So if we go to our desktop here, we'll find bounce right here. We can simply click and drag and bring that and apply it to our monitor right there, okay? Okay, so just like that, from the action menu and from the separate file, the same thing. Okay, now what if I want to apply this? You know, I've made a really cool animation. I have similar shaped props in my scene. I can apply that to other props as well. So let's go ahead and give that a shot. Let's go to our bounce. I probably should have saved this to our custom folder here. What you can do, by the way, here, I'll go ahead and do this really quick. I'm just going to go ahead and cut this from my desktop. And I'm going to go to my content manager here. We're going to go to animation into our custom tab and into motion. Let's just go ahead and right click on this punch combo, rather action menu rather, and right click here and select find file. Now we should be able to apply this motion into our action menu here. Control V. There's our bounce. Okay. Prop motion file. It should appear here. No, maybe our this animation folder. That file. Whoops. There we go. Oh, I guess it doesn't apply to that one either. Interesting. It should be able to apply to a specific particular folder for prop animations. Okay, we'll figure that out later. It may have changed a little bit since I was last here, but yeah, so again, you could just apply it to your action menu or save it to a separate custom folder. It should be able to be saved into any one of those folders, into a custom folder. We'll just skip over that for now. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that we have it freely available, though. Was it in this folder? I see the two. There we go, bounce. Okay. Copy, and let's just paste it back to our desktop just in case. Okay, so we're going to left click and drag this bounce animation again. This time we're going to apply it to like the chair. Okay, so you can see the chair bounces around as well. And if we click on the chair, we click on the motion track, we can click on this, and we can make sure we have this option here, loop enabled. You can also use the Alt-L hotkey. We can bring it back to like, frame 1 or whatever frame we want, and click and drag like this, and then the chair will bounce along with the monitor. Okay, we can do the same thing. We can apply it to other things as well, like our desktop or something else in our scene. Maybe our lamp here. Okay, so if you want all of our props to kind of dance together, this is probably a really good way to do it. So now we'd have our chair. So, if this starts happening in your office, you're probably drinking a little bit too much coffee. All right, so let's go ahead and the last thing I'm going to do is show you how to add, and the next 5 minutes here is add some music and sound effects to your scene. It's very simple to do this. We kind of touched on it a little bit earlier. Go to your track list here and go to project. Okay, so the project is your main project folder. We'll close down the other ones here. And like I mentioned, we have sound effects 1, sound effects 2, and music tracks. Okay, if I double click on the music track, it prompts me to bring in a music track. Okay, MP3 is a recommended format. I'm going to use this hip jazz song from Bensound. Okay, Bensound, by the way, is an excellent website for royalty-free music. Just make sure you're not making tons of money off of it or something. All right, I'll actually go to Bensound here, give Bensound a little shout out for us so you guys can check it out. Bensound, royalty-free music by Bensound, right? This is the one here. So lots of cool stuff. I've been using this for ages, for educational purposes. Again, there's different versions. for licensing if you use it for commercial purposes. Please make sure that you pay the right amount for whatever license you require. Okay, but yeah, lots of stuff you can download. You can preview them from here, and that's the one that I added into my my scene there. I'll throw this in the chat window as well. If I can find my chat window. Last time didn't show up. There we go. Okay. Control V and paste that. There you go. All right. I figured out the chat window fiasco there. Okay, so that's Ben Sound. Highly recommend it, checking it out. But you can see that applies a clip into our music track. Okay, and we can zoom out. You can see it. It's a long clip, long song. It goes for the entire duration. Now, if you want, there's a couple really easy ways to modify. I mean, the music capabilities in Cartoon Animator 4 aren't exceptional by any means. They're very, very basic. So what you want to do is you can actually double click on the clip, and there's a few options for you here. There's an option to fade in your track or fade out the track, okay? So say, for example, we want to fade in gradually. We can set it to like 5%. So the first 5% of the clip is going to be a fade in until it achieves maximum volume, okay? You can set the volume here as well. But at this point here, we'll go ahead and close it down. We can see that so about there, it kind of reaches the full volume. Now, we can also break the clip up if we want. We can, let's go to, for example, to, okay, say, for example, we want to stop the music at that point. We can go ahead and right-click the clip and select break. Okay, and then we can delete the second part. So let's go ahead and delete that. And let's double-click on this clip again. Let's do a separate fade in. Okay, so now the fade in and fade out resets. Okay, so we'll do a 10% fade in this time, and maybe like a 5% fade out, or a brief 10% fade out for this one as well. Okay, now what's going to happen? It's going to fade in. Okay, and that's just a brief fade in, fade out. Very, very basic music editing tools for Cartoon Animator 4. I really recommend, using a separate program to do your audio, whether it be Premiere or whatever post-production software you're using. I generally use Adobe Premiere myself, since I've been using it since the dinosaurs and Adobe walked the earth together. Okay, let's go to sound effects, by the way. It's basically the same thing. Sound effects, if you want to add sound effect in, double click on the sound effects track, and I believe I have a background sound effect here. Got to go back to the main folder here. SFX, there we go. Busy office ambiance. All right, so let's throw that in there. All right, so yeah, your basic office ambiance. And again, you can set the volume for that as well. Set the volume to whatever you want, set to fade in, set to fade out. Again, if it's ambiance, you generally want the volume to be a little bit lower when your characters are talking. Otherwise, it'll overpower the volume of your characters. All right, so we have our monitor and our lamp and our chair doing some jazzy dance. And we have some office ambiance with our hip jazz music. And I think we'll just end it off there. We'll get to the Q&A section here, since you guys probably are burning up with questions. So if you have any questions for me, feel free to throw those questions into the chat window, or rather into the Q&A window, not the chat window. And we will go from there. Okay, so we have a bunch of questions already set up here. A good distraction from the quarantine. Thanks, Kai. Yeah, so hopefully you guys are, not too bored. Hopefully I'm not boring you even more than you've been bored over the last weekend here. Quarantined in your houses and stuff. I've just been watching a ton of Netflix myself. Yeah, but you can learn some stuff too, right? Learn some Cartoon Animator. I've been messing around with iClone a little bit this weekend as well. A good question from Kathy. Will we have this? Will this have a replay? Yes, we're going to we are recording this, so we'll send you out a video of the replay. At any point, you can rewind and pause and go through it at your own speed. So if I went a little bit too fast for some of you guys, or a little bit too slow, and you want to skip ahead, feel free to do that. We're going to send out the video for you later on. Okay. So question from Jim Beam. Okay. Oh, you know what? I didn't send in the chat window. There's a couple links I didn't send to everyone. I only sent to the attendees, or to the, oh goodness. Yes, all right. So there's a couple of links here in the chat window I sent to all panelists. Oh, all panelists, right? Let me send these links to you guys again, this Campus Hero Bundle. I didn't send it to the proper channel there. I sent it only to panelists. So let's go ahead and do this to all panelists and attendees. There we go. All right, so that's the first one. That's the Campus Hero Power Tools there. All right, and any question, like if you really want to know the links, I'll go through those links again and I'll send them to you. So apologies for that, guys. I didn't realize I was only sending to the panelists there. Netflix is frying my brain. All right, anonymous attendee. Are you able to upload your own custom backgrounds and props? Yes, you most certainly are. I'll actually show you how to do that since it's very simple and easy. I'm just gonna go Google, like, let's do cartoon sofa or something, okay? Since I was just doing this recently. Let's go to let's modify our settings here for our image search. I'm gonna go to advanced search here. File type, let's change file type to, oops. First, let's go to our images, okay? And here we have a bunch of cartoon sofas. Let's refine that by going to settings, advanced search. You do want to make sure that your format is PNG, okay? Because they support transparent format. I'm just gonna choose a large size here, and we'll search for cartoon sofa that way. All right, so we have, quite the selection of cartoon sofas here. This one looks cool. This watermelon club penguin one here. There you go. Let's just click on this, and hopefully we can save the transparent PNG. I don't recommend doing this, but let's go ahead and click download transparent PNG. Are you able to save it now? Okay, that was a risky click probably. Here's our transparent PNG of a watermelon sofa or whatever. I believe that would have downloaded to my download folder there. I do believe I do have this in my folder anyways. Let's go back to the webinar folder here. I did save this earlier today. Yes, here's your cartoon sofa. All right, so this is the image that I saved. Okay, cartoon sofa, same one. Let's go ahead and click and drag this into my project here. Left click and drag, by the way, and select prop. Okay, so you can save it as a prop. And there you go. This guy has this eclectic looking cartoon sofa in the background of his office. Right? He's a quirky fellow. Now, if you want to save this as a custom prop, again, make sure you import it as a prop. All you have to do is go to our prop. Let's close on our timelines for now. I'll go to the prop tab here under custom, and we'll just save this as a custom prop by pressing the plus key down here. Okay. And it should allow us to save that at some point here in the near future, hopefully. There you go. We'll call it Sofa Dude. Okay, then we can bring in multiple Sofa Dudes. All right, there's two. Another way to duplicate stuff in your scene, by the way, that's kind of really easy to do, is hold the control key and click and drag. and you can create duplicates and triplicates of everything, right? So we can, create a duplicate of our screen here by holding the control key and clicking and dragging. Whoops. What do we do there? We may have just taken Cartoon Animator 4 into a different dimension here. All right, well, anyways, you can control, click, and drag stuff. And I do want to mention as well that you can save your custom props. So again, that's screen that I had earlier with the, let's delete all these sofas here since they're moving around. This is what happens when you animate stuff inadvertently. Okay, so let's save this screen. So remember, again, we can right-click in Action menu. There's the bounce here. We can actually save this with the custom animation into the custom props folder here. And I already did save it as Screeny here, so I'll go ahead and plus and overwrite this. And then we'll re-import it in. This was the actual way that I meant to save the animations, the prop animations. You can save them as part of the prop action menu there. Okay. So I'm going to left click and drag Screeny in. We called him Screeny, and there he is. And right click and action menu and bounce. And it seems there's a vector problem with Mr. Screeny, but he's facing the other way now. All right, but anyways, that's how you save stuff and re-import it. That might be a little bit of a bug there. And it shouldn't happen for other stuff. We can bring in Sofa Do just to check. Yes, okay, that's fine. Okay, and I wanted to mention before you import anything in, it's a very good idea, or before you save your custom props, it's a very good idea to reset your position here on the world scene. So at the top left, make sure your item is zeroed out, 0, 0, 0 here. Okay, and just make sure right click and remove object animation. So now if we save it, again, let's save it as Sofa 0. Because when you bring your items into the scene, your custom items, you want to make sure that when you save them, the transform values are zeroed out. Otherwise, they may appear in a different area. So we'll call this Sofa 0. Okay, and I'm gonna delete this first sofa here. So let's bring in Sofa 0. Let's actually double click and bring in Sofa 0. He'll import into the exact same spot. Let's double click on Sofa Dude. Or Sofa Dude will apply, but if you click and drag it in, it will apply like this, okay? And that's not something we want. The transform position and everything will be saved because it had an animation already saved into it. So when you save your prop, make sure that you don't have any animation in it, and make sure that it's at 0, 0, 0 on the X, Y, and Z axis. That's just the best practice for importing your stuff, okay? I should have just mentioned that a little bit earlier. I was a little bit sloppy there. All right, anyways, let's go to the next one here. That's how you save your own custom backgrounds and props. Same process for props there for backgrounds. Okay, Douglas asks, could you briefly discuss the difference between G3, G2, and G3 360 characters? Okay, let's do that. Let's actually close this, start a new project here since this one's a little bit messy. So the different types of characters, again, this is our 4th generation of Cartoon Animator 4. So we've, created different characters throughout the different iterations of the software. If we go to our template tab up here, let's just twirl these up to make things simple. So there's G3 360 characters. There's your regular G3 characters. And these are all different content packs that I've purchased. So don't worry about these ones down here. But G2 characters are basically Cartoon Animator 2 characters. Let's bring in Emma really quickly here, okay? So the cool thing about G2 characters, the very cool thing about them is you can actually change their angle profiles. And the way you can do that is by using your bracket keys. Okay, this is the easiest way to do it. You can just press the bracket key, and she'll change to like a 45-degree angle. And I'm pressing the right bracket key again. She'll change to 90 degrees, and then so on and so forth. Okay, so you can go around the world. This is exclusive to G2 characters, just so you're aware. Okay, So you cannot do this with the current G3 characters. This is only for characters from the G2 era. Now, G2 plus characters are similar, but they have like kind of 3D 360 heads. Okay. Now, G3 characters are generally the most basic of the characters in terms of functionality. Like this G3 human right now, for example. These are just your basic G3 characters from Cartoon Animator 3. So if we bring in this elastic female front-facing, for example, the facial animation is very basic. Generally, the difference between the G3 and the G3 360 characters is facial animation. So let's take a look at this character's facial animation. If we use something easy like the face puppet, and we'll get more into this in part 3 of the tutorial, or webinar series rather. If we preview like this, again, it's not very, it's limited, 360 movement. The character looks like doesn't really go very far from side to side. Okay, whereas if we take a G3 360 character like Jared, for example, here, let's take one that's default, just so we can G3 360 here. Let's use Martha here, since she looks similar to this female character. The G3 360 characters will have much more flexibility for facial animation. So if we take Martha and we use the same tool, Face Puppet, and we preview, you notice that Martha, she goes a lot further from side to side, okay, with the facial features, just like this, okay? And the G3 360 characters also have like morphing and much better expressions for their faces. So that's the improvement they made from G3 characters to G3 360 characters. There's all these other characters as well. Actually, Ted would probably be a good example because there's a G3 Ted here as well. Yeah, if you really want to see the difference, I guess there's no more Ted. I think he's G2 actually. Anyways, but that's basically it. The G3 360 characters have 360-degree head animation there. Okay, so hopefully that answers your question there, Douglas. Yeah, that's basically the only 3 you asked about. Okay, so Anonymous Attendee asks, can you upload your own audio files? Yeah, the audio files will be part of the project files, so you should be able to, record those on your own time. I don't really want to be, mass distributing audio files that aren't mine. So, but they will be as part of the project file. All right. So, okay, Alberto asks, I have a Noitum suit. How can I record the moves with the suit? Okay, so Alberto, we are currently working on supporting Noitum and other body motion capture for Cartoon Animator. That's going to be in the very near future. We are going to have, body motion capture here. I believe in the third or fourth quarter of this year, we're going to have body motion capture for Cartoon Animator 4, which is very exciting. Currently, all we have is facial motion capture, which I'll be demonstrating in day 3 of this webinar series. But yeah, that's going to be supported by the end of this year to confirm that. Not sure when, but we are going to be having that, and we'll have tons of tutorials on that as well. By the way, in case I know a lot of people that don't even know that we have a whole bunch of tutorials on our product website for Cartoon Animator 4. So I'm going to put this link in the chat window as well. If you go to Cartoon Animator 4 here and you go to Learn and Tutorials, there's a whole tutorial library which is easily categorized according to whatever topic you want to learn about. In this link here, I'll just throw it in the chat window here. There you go. And this is going to all attendees this time. All right. Yeah. So, and you'll probably get sick of hearing my voice by watching all these tutorials. Okay. So another anonymous attendee going to the next question here asks if when I bring in custom content, what file format does it have to be? There's a variety of different file formats you can import. All main image formats are supported, like JPEG, BMP, and PNG. I think if we go to the user manual, they should have a whole list there of importing stuff. Let's go ahead and like import format. Maybe. Yeah. There's GIFs. I know that there's somewhere here a list of gosh, where is it again? Preferences, maybe? No, I know there's a list somewhere here in the help files about which files you can import. I know there's the export list right here, which files we can export. They're all listed right here. I think import and export are probably the same files, or the same file formats. These are for video actually. Yeah, but generally it's going to be here's your BMP, JPEG, Targa, and PNG. So these are the image files you can import into Cartoon Animator. And I believe those are the only ones. You can also, for video, any video format, if you go ahead and render, you want to like render something, these are the video formats you should be able to import in, okay? MP4, AVI, and WMV. MP4 is probably the most practical of those files that I would recommend using. Because it's not incredibly large like AVIs, and a bit better quality than WMV for the most part. Okay, let's go to our next question here. A lot of anonymous attendees this time around. Okay, so here's a question. Can you add a shadow under the arm when it crosses over a body? I mean, technically you can. It's going to take some more time than would normally, just for a simple animation. What you would have to do to add a shadow would be to add probably a custom prop over top of the body. Yeah, there's a couple of different ways you could do that. None of them are really easy. We don't have, easy shadows to add to your character. You have to kind of do those custom, like draw them custom frame by frame, most likely, or animate them frame by frame to match to your arm movement. So really no easy way that I can demonstrate to do that, unfortunately, right now. Okay, anonymous attendee, can you create and save your own custom animations? Yeah, I kind of demonstrated, saving your prop animations a little bit earlier into the action menu. Now we're going to talk about saving your own custom animations for characters in part 3 of this webinar series. Okay, so part 2 again is mostly character customization and creation, and part 3 is going to be the animation stuff. Okay, next question. So on an iPad Pro, what do you use as Alt and scroll mouse? So Alt, I believe, is the same on Macs, isn't it? I know Control is Command. Alt is like function, maybe. Oh, I forget. It's been ages since I used a MacBook. Yeah, maybe someone else can fill in Lisa here. The Alt for Apple here. Yeah, I'm also not new to Apple Tech. I just haven't used it in ages since college. But I forget what it's called. I just know Command is Control. I have one in the other room, but I don't want to walk out and check it. Okay. So Trish asks, how can you get a voice in the timeline? So you can apply, you can animate your character, you can add sound to your characters and to your props as well. If I want to, animate my character, I can just go ahead and add some voice to my character. I can select the character, and you want to start by going over here to create script. And again, we'll cover this in day 3. But if you don't get to it, there's a number of different ways you can record your voice. You can use text to speech, a WAV file, or a script from Cartoon Animator 4 somewhere. Oh, let's give her a text to speech voice. Hey everyone, I hope you're enjoying this webinar and staying safe. And then just press OK.
Hey everyone, I hope you're enjoying this webinar and staying safe.
Okay. So a really quick and easy facial animation for you there. And that's going to be in your character's a different track in your character. That's basically how to add stuff to your voices to your character. Oh, we have a Band-Aid too. And if we press F3 and go into our timeline, we don't unfortunately have audio tracks for props. We only have it for characters. So you can see here, no audio tracks available. We only have those SFX tracks, which you have to use interchangeably. All right, Band-Aid shouldn't be able to talk anyways. All right, let's go to the next question. Yeah, Trish, if you want more details on that, feel free to ask me about adding voices to the timeline. Okay, so Douglas has a good question here. I noticed that my download of this project has a CTA4 watermark. Is that just because it's a project? I purchased CTA4 pipeline and wondered, thanks. Okay, so I should mention that there's going to be some content in the project files that I'm going to send to you guys that are purchased content, okay? So for example, in scene 1, Jim's obnoxious coworker, the blonde guy who's like, hey, Jim, that guy is purchased from the Campus Heroes pack, the one that I linked you guys earlier. Now, if you don't have that pack and that character is in your scene, it's going to show up a watermark on your project window, okay? Now, any other sort of item could probably do that as well. You want to make sure that you own the content that's in the project you're downloading or using. Otherwise, that watermark is going to show up. And thank you for reminding me of that, Douglas, because it's very important. A lot of people get confused over watermarks, and we do have watermarks to protect, artists when they produce their content. They spend endless hours creating custom characters and props and stuff like that. And so basically when they upload it to the marketplace for publishing, we add what's called DRM protection onto that. It's like a digital protection for the prop or for the character or whatever. So if someone tries to use it in their project without purchasing it first, it's going to show a watermark. Right, so just be aware of that. It's very important to keep in mind. So probably if you ever have a watermark in a project you've downloaded from someone else, that means they own something that you don't. That's in that project. Okay. So are there any more detailed tutorials on the official site from anonymous attendee? I believe, yeah, I showed you guys the tutorial site there. The Learning Center, it's called. Highly recommend checking that out. Easier to find the specific topic you're looking for. You did not see the links you mentioned in the chat window, so hopefully, hopefully we resolved that now. I was only sending to other attendees. Okay, so Peggy asks, can you remind us of the zoom in and out process? Okay, so zooming in, very easy. Holding Alt, your Alt key, and both the mouse buttons. Okay, like this. Just like this. Actually, you know what? I'm going to, because I kind of skipped over the 3D part. I'm going to load in that project again while we're waiting here. Holding Alt and both mouse buttons will zoom out, in and out. And holding Alt and the left mouse button will pan and dolly whatever up and down, left and right on your 2D scene, your camera. I'll get to that in just a moment here. Once this project loads, I'll show you the 3D view, which is very important. Jim Long asks, will I be able to use my Crazy Talk 3 to follow along? Crazy Talk 3 has a lot of the same features, but then there's a lot missing. Most specifically, the facial motion capture is missing from Crazy Talk 3. The new characters are missing, obviously. There's a few other features here and there that are missing. The prop deform, which I mentioned, is not available in Crazy Talk 3. Crazy Talk Animator 3, a few other things as well. So Jim, you can follow along, but certain things aren't going to be available in the previous version there. All right, thanks for the joke there, Brian. Okay, Harry asks a good question. How can I save a single frame? Okay, if you want to export a single frame, say we have the action shot here of, you know, Jim's obnoxious coworker coming up and talking to him while he's trying to work. If you want to save a frame, just go to Render and Render Image, okay? I believe you can also press F10 yet to preview, okay? So if you go up here and just press Current Frame Preview, it'll just basically save a preview image.png, okay? And you can just go ahead and save that and share it and create it and edit it, whatever, and so on and so forth, okay? So the easiest and fastest way is just to go up to Preview. You can also press the F10 hotkey, okay? If that answers your question there, Harry. I did want to mention here the 3D view that Peggy was asking about. Okay, so let's go out of camera record mode here. Again, Alt and left mouse button, pan around like this. Alt and both mouse buttons, zoom in and out. But you can also, I wanted to mention here as well, I didn't mention earlier, there is a 3D view at the top, okay, in your control panel there, or in the panel up here. So you can left click on 3D view, and you can see here, now you can see everything in a 3D perspective. It's a little bit, kind of trips you out a little bit, but it kind of shows you, you know, where everything is on the 3D perspective. You can control and click on multiple items. Like I can control and click on the chair and this desk, and I can move those both forward like this. And you can see them like this, back and forth on the 3D plane. But again, you don't want them to be that far forward. So be aware of, you know, what you're bringing forward and what you're bringing backwards, okay? We can make Ed's or Jim's obnoxious coworker forward and backward as well. And Control Z if we want to undo that. Yeah, so 3D view is a easy way to kind of just see where everything is in your scene from a 3D perspective. Okay, so Thomas is asking, exporting JPEGs for making comic books. Yep, we have a lot of users, actually surprisingly a lot of users that use Cartoon Animator 4 for just creating still graphic novels or comic books. So hopefully the process I showed you there, if you don't want to export as a you know, PNG, you can go to Render and Render Image, and you can render it as a JPEG or these files here as well. If you render it as a GIF, again, it's going to render the sequence. And you want to select all your frame size and everything like that. And you want to select your export range. That goes into a whole different can of worms though, so I don't want to really open that up right now. You can also export GIFs as well. But for a single scene, you can export either a sequence or a current frame. Okay. Okay, so hopefully I answered your question there about which characters, the differences between the characters there, Douglas. Any further questions, you guys can always email me. My email is kai@reallusion.com. That's just kai@reallusion.com. If I don't get to any of your questions here. But I'm going to get to all the questions before we quit up. So, all right. Next question from another anonymous attendee. Is there integration between Character Creator, iClone, and Cartoon Animator? The only integration we have between those three programs is I showed you earlier that G2 characters have you know, 3D capabilities. You can see them from all different angles. So you can actually import in iClone motions, like 3D motions, onto your G2 characters. Now, just as a little teaser here, that's going to be available for all characters in the future. All right, most characters. I'm not going to say all. Not the current generation of characters, but we are going to have. We're going to be creating new characters that have, again, 3D capabilities. So we have a huge library of thousands of iClone motions. We've been, producing iClone for almost 20 years now, 15 years or so. And there's a huge library of motions, dance motions and everything, 3D motions. And you can apply those now to your 2D characters, which is absolutely awesome. But you will be able to in the near future, okay? So these are the improvements we're making for Cartoon Animator. All right, so stay updated on our website and subscribe to the newsletter. You'll get all the latest news about the newest improvements and features that are going to come here. So again, that's currently only available for G2 characters, but it will be integrated into the new characters in the future here of Cartoon Animator. Okay, Loretta asks a good question that I get asked a lot from people who are new to the software. What's the difference between Cartoon Animator and Crazy Talk Animator? Essentially, Crazy Talk Animator is just for, or sorry, Crazy Talk Animator is the previous version. So after version 3, we renamed it to Cartoon Animator. Okay, just to differentiate it from our Crazy Talk software. Crazy Talk is only for facial animation and head animation. Cartoon Animator is for full body and scenes and props and all sorts of other wacky stuff like your general animation 2D animation program would have. And we did rebrand between Crazy Talk Animator 3 and Cartoon Animator 4. Okay, so just so you're aware. Okay, a question from Ricardo Reglero. Can you use AI or vector files? Yeah, you certainly can. We actually recommend using those files, but you need to import as PSD for those files. We are going to be adding support for AI very, very soon as well. So I shouldn't say AI yet, but that's going to be in the very near future. So that's right now it's only PSD files, but in the near future it's going to be AI files. So stay tuned for that, Ricardo. And again, we are only in the 4th version of Cartoon Animator, so we are always adding tons and tons of improvements. One of the most exciting ones is the body animation and facial body mocap in the future as well as AI support. Okay, James Ferguson asks, will you demonstrate changing direction with G3 characters in part 3? Yep, that's going to be one of the main focuses of changing direction, or of the part 3, is changing directions with the characters. Yeah, it's hard to get it super smooth for the body. For the head, it's quite easy to get it smoothly done, but for the body, changing directions a little bit tricky. But I'll talk about James. I'll talk about how to do that in the best way in part 3 on Thursday. All right. Thanks for coming by, Philippe. And thanks that you enjoyed the webinar here. I'm glad you enjoyed. Yeah, Alt is Option on Mac. Thanks, Peggy. So there's Command and Option on the Mac. That's the one. Just had a brain fart there and it just kind of threw me for a loop. It's like, I know I've used it like many times, but yeah, Option is Alt on the Mac. Okay. I just don't even think about it when I use it. Okay. Thanks for attending, Trish. Hopefully you learned a lot there. Sheila asks, can you change hair color and clothes for the actors? Yeah, you certainly can. There's tons of ways to do that. I'll show you briefly how to do that. We're going to talk about this more in detail on part 2 on Tuesday. But if I want to change, Jim's hair here, for example, the easiest way is to take him into composer mode. Don't worry that he has animation. And we'll you can launch him in an external image editor, or you can modify the hair color within Cartoon Animator 4. And hopefully he's going to load up here. There we go. There's Jim. All right. So there's Jim. There's his hair. Sometimes you can modify it using the render style. Certain characters have render style capabilities. But we'll see, for those of you who don't have pipeline version, you want to launch external image editor. You want to use this tool, okay? And that'll just launch whatever character you have. I'll just do it for the sake of doing it. Launch external image editor for his hair here. And I'll show you the comparison between the pro version and the pipeline version. The pipeline version makes it a lot easier to customize your characters because it exports the entire character as a template into your image editor. Oh. I just changed my password too. Hopefully it doesn't ask me to change my password. Oh gosh. Yeah, Adobe can be a real bugger. What? Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah, whatever. All right. Luckily, I have my phone beside me here. Let's go ahead and do. Okay, I don't remember my code here. Oh man. Okay. I just changed my Adobe password, and I think it's on my desktop, but I don't want to show everyone, so I'm gonna just I'm gonna have to like cancel this out here, I guess. I don't believe I have it anywhere else. Because it just, Adobe asked me to reset my password, and it says you can't have the same part of your password as your other passwords. So yeah, it's a long story. But essentially what you want to do is you'll launch your hair in Photoshop, you'll launch your hair in whatever program. I should probably just get GIMP or something. And then change the color of your hair, using your traditional technique that you would normally use in whatever image editing software you have, and then you would save it, and then it updates basically. That's the explanation. And there is tutorials on that in the tutorial page there. More specifically in head creation. Nope, not that one. PSD, export and import. These are the ones that you want to. So here you go. Changing color style in Photoshop, or these ones here. These are all tutorials that will show you how to change color and change styles of different items on your character. Yeah, sorry about that. Stupid Adobe Cloud, don't always have to log in, and I just changed my password. So okay, so hopefully that answered your question there, Sheila. Just check out these tutorials. Sorry, I can't do it myself right now. Okay, Douglas asks, can you add bubbles above your characters' heads to complement the sounds like other cartoons? Yeah, you certainly can. The bubbles can be found. There's a couple of template bubbles that are found in our folders, our default library. Once we get out of composer mode here. But yeah, super easy to do that. I believe the bubbles are found in like SFX or something like that. Like, yeah, these text comic bubbles like this one right here. Just like throw that in and add the text there and whatnot. And yeah, it's pretty easy. Okay, let's move to the next. And if you don't have this, you can just bring in your own custom bubbles as well, by the way. Okay, so next question is from Lisa. I want to animate custom animals, not just humans. Can I do this? Yeah, we're going to talk about how to do that in the next part of this webinar series on Tuesday. So I'm going to create some custom animals and show you how to animate them. One of such is this chicken right here. This very chicken with a very vacant stare on its eyes, almost like me watching Netflix all weekend. Yeah, we're going to create this character in part 2. Okay. Next question from Edgar Garcia. How do I create a character illustration or animation to be able to use it in Cartoon Animator? We'll talk about how to create characters in part 2 again. A lot of questions about this, obviously. So yeah, character customization and creation going to be covered in part 2 of the webinar series. All right. Lisa Newman asks, are there complete instructions for Mac and iPad available? Yes. The help files are multi-platform. They don't discriminate, the help files. So those are always available for you to access help files from inside Character Creator. Obviously, just go to help, use your manual, and all the other help stuff that you may need help with are up here under the help item in the file menu. Okay, Walter asks or mentions here, you should apply a way to imitate for capturing movement with a strip from a film. Okay, maybe you're talking about onion paper editing, and I think that's going to be a feature coming up here in the near future as well, or not. I'm kind of unclear about your question, Walter. Capturing movement with a strip from a film and put that into a scene together in Cartoon Animator 4. I mean, you can import video files if that's what you're talking about. No problem. It's easy to import video files. There are some video files actually here in the library, like this, I don't know, rock band video. This is from like iPhone 2 or something. It's ages old. Whoops. What did I do? Oh, import it. Let's import it as a, let's import it as a prop. Sure. Here's our video file of this dude rocking out.
Jim, you really should take a break from animating. You've been at it for hours.
And yeah, all those video files are able to be imported in, no problem. But hopefully that answers your question there, Walter. Again, if not, just feel free to elaborate a bit. Okay, next question from Lisa. Again, 3D perspective shows a separation of layers, but can objects actually be 3D? No, we don't have the objects as 3D. Essentially, it's just an illusion. It's an illusion of 3D. So it's a bunch of 2D items organized to look like they're 3D. Yeah, hopefully that answers that question for you there, Lisa. All right, so yeah, hopefully I answered your question there, Walter. If not, just email me and I'll get into more detail on that. Okay. Lisa asked a good question. Are you going to make it accessible for Serif Affinity and other Serif software? Yep. I've used Affinity before myself. I don't have it installed currently, but I've used it before with the software. And we do have compatibility with that. But again, you have to use the standard PSD files, unfortunately, or the standard image formats. Lisa, sorry about that, but yeah, any image editor can be used, no problem. It doesn't really matter. I'd recommend GIMP for a lot of people. GIMP's, by the way, a free software, a free image editor that's getting better and better all the time. It's almost like the Blender of 2D animation software or 2D photo editing software. Download. Yeah, this one right here. Recommended for you guys, a little bit slower, but again, I'll throw this in the chat window in case you guys haven't heard of it. There we go. Check out GIMP. Highly recommended, everyone. And it's free. Okay, thanks everyone. I got a couple of people saying thanks. Yeah, we can, if you want to dye the hair, you can try using hair dye, but you might just, regarding the changing hair color question earlier, you can try using hair dye, but you may damage your computer screen. So I wouldn't recommend throwing hair dye at your screen out of anger, like I sometimes want to do with Photoshop. But okay. Oh, copy each frame with the software opened. Walter mentions here. Yeah, that gets a little bit complicated. So I'm not going to be able to answer that, unfortunately, in this short period of time there, Walter. But yeah, probably something you can consult with me. Excuse me, via email. I got hiccups now. All right. So yeah, sorry about that. But I think it looks like we're all out of questions. So thanks so much, everyone, for all your questions. And again, apologies if I didn't get to your question to your satisfaction or whatever. But again, you can always contact me, kai@reallusion.com, and I'm more than happy to try and work things out with you a little bit more for your particular questions. And again, as always, make sure you fill out the survey that we're going to send out, because you get that 10%, a big whopping 10% from the content store, and you can buy a bunch of content and pump up your library like mine, just full of crazy content. Yeah, so I think that's about it. If there's no more questions, again, thank you so much, everyone, for attending, and hopefully all of you guys stay safe out there with the virus going around the world these days. Just stay in and use Cartoon Animator 4 for the next 3 weeks. That's all you need to do since you have the software, right? Thank goodness for that. All right, so yeah, thanks everyone so much. Hopefully you learned a lot, and make sure you check out our forums over at forum.reallusion.com. We have a really cool community of users who are more than happy to answer questions for you guys, any of the new users, and there's a lot of troubleshooting and stuff that goes on there as well. Yeah, so I think that's about it. So I'm gonna bid you guys all adieu. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world, and hopefully we'll see you on Tuesday and then again on Thursday.